Thank you for joining us for this episode on Marketing Demystified Season 2. Today we have with us Pooja Kaveri, who is a marketing director with Hansaplast. And we are discussing marketing in health, wellness, and self-care sector. So we'll continue the conversation, Pooja. In the last section, you did mention that one of the biggest challenges in this industry is basically the consumer mindset, specifically
Yes.
in a country like India, where we have alternate way of treating wounds and we have alternate way of doing self-care. So like you rightly said, there is a cough syrup versus there is a kada. There is a wound which can be treated by using soframycin or Dettol, and or then later on applying Hansaplast. Versus people have that opinion of leaving the wound open or applying haldi to it. So as a marketeer, this is consumer behavior. I mean, it's hardcore consumer belief system. How do you go about addressing this? Because I think this is like complete. I mean, the category usage is dependent on what the belief system is. I remember we were taught this case study um, earlier when Colgate came into India.
Hmm.
People had the habit of sitting in a chopal, I mean, the rural
Hmm.
areas. So, although the adoption was much earlier and much faster in the urban areas, in the rural areas, the concept was that it's a social thing. So, people would sit under a tree and they
Yeah.
would have that datum in their hand.
Yeah.
And or even if that dant manjan, they'll put it in their palm and then they'll use it for doing the brushing. I mean, not the brushing, the cleaning. It was more about social binding. Now, toothpaste application is a complex process. I mean, you can't take the toothpaste and sit in a chopal and do it. So there
Yes.
they introduced the dant manjan. The dant,
Hmm.
that is how the dant manjan came into the entire process.
Hmm.
It was a belief system which needed some change.
Yes.
So similar is the problem with you, with your sector. So how do you go about addressing it?
Absolutely. So that's, I think, the biggest thing that we are trying to drive. And if I may say so, the belief system of a category non-user here is that your wound heals because it's exposed to air, and air is actually healing the wound. If I just boil it down to that. Versus if you look at someone who actually covers a plaster, the belief system is that protection leads to healing. So they are very different belief systems. So I think what works for a user versus what works for a non-user are very different. So it's really about using what works for a non-user versus looking at breathability, how you are able to talk about breathability. So are you giving protection with breathability, or are you giving breathability with an added benefit of protection? So it's important that not just for this category, but most categories, you really boil down to the belief system. Look at the belief system. If that's what you're addressing, your product, your communication has to be around that belief system. Also, for example, to give a context, that open wound healing would make more sense, say, a few years earlier. But I think right now, with the dirt, with viruses, with bacteria, maybe you can just swing the insight and use it. That is really open wound healing the best in today's environment, for example. So it's really about going into the insight, into the context of where you are in the times that you are in. So maybe 20 years earlier, the air is good, open wound healing makes sense, versus now, does it really make sense? So really leveraging the right insight at the right time point in terms of the context and bringing that alive. And these changes don't happen overnight. I think it's important to keep driving this for 10 years, 20 years. That's when the shift happens. I could also give an example in terms of my journey with General Mills and say with Tata, which is all about staples, pantry categories. So for example, atta for the longest time used to be, people used to buy wheat and they would go to a chakki wala and get the atta from there. People would buy pulses just from the local grocery shop. I think it's taken last 20 years probably for the shift to happen to packaged, because you want quality, you want convenience, so you want trust. So I think this shift happens over a period of time. Also, my personal belief is that we are slowly moving away. It's not happened completely, but from a joint family or a multi-generational family where there are many age groups involved. So for example, a lot of the understanding you get as a consumer is from your parents,
Yes.
from your grandparents. So a lot of those belief systems come, but I think from our generation to when things will go to the next generation, those belief systems, I'm not sure how much will get translated to those people. So then those belief systems will be very different. So 10 years now later, the belief systems will be very different. It will be very convenience led, very quick solutions. That is why you see insta commerce, quick commerce also growing really fast, because I'm not a consumer of insta commerce, but when I talk to people 6 years younger to me, they really do not have planned purchases. They really buy groceries, they just check the fridge. If there is no paneer, they'll just order paneer quickly. That's not my belief system. So there are these belief systems that are changing. It's really important to be abreast of these belief systems and your ways of the day in the life of a consumer and look at that. So
using that effectively in your communication. So
correct.
so if I were to ask you, so this is the broader holistic thought which you gave. What are the few steps which you have taken? It could be in terms of communication, it could be in terms of the campaigns. What are the few steps which you have taken to bring about the change in this behavioral uh, system, or what are the few things which you have done to uh, capture this change in behavior towards your product or category adoption?
Absolutely. So one is really using this insight in your communication. So having the right insight about why is protection important and how is protection in today's times important is sort of the communication idea. So that's one big thing we've done. Now, what's important is, as I've shared with you, translating it at point of sale, for example, because I think standalone pharmacies or chemists, which is the biggest channel, and that's where the purchase happens. And a lot of purchase is here slightly more impulse or trigger based for this specific category. So ensuring that you're able to drive the memorability and recall at point of sale on the same topic is important. Third is in education. So here I think it's really important to keep educating. So how we are able to work on the right blogs, articles, disseminate that, talk about that in a social media, always on approach, and ensuring that this kind of communication is something we keep disseminating throughout is something that we've been doing. But for it to really impact, I think it will take a lot of time, because this is really changing consumer behavior at its core, and that takes time.
That takes time. Yeah, but whatever steps you are taking, so whatever through education or
Yes.
through doing awareness campaigns, or say some drive at the chemist or OTC,
Yes.
the counter, they're doing some drive. I'm sure it will move the needle, although
Yes.
slowly, but it will move the needle.
Yes.
Great.
That's the hope.
So great. Uh, what is the future of marketing in your industry? What do you think about that?
So I think health and wellness overall, or healthcare as a category, is still evolving. There's a lot happening, but I think one is really having the right recommender. So in terms of, I think that right now people are not able to get the right recommender. So you will see certain communication, someone wearing a coat, or somewhere saying you will show a chemist. So I think really figuring out how do you drive the right recommendation through the right strategy is one very important, I think, way we all need to figure out as marketeers within the category. How do we build the trust? Not just at a brand level, but along with the brand who is really backing this entire functional benefit that we're talking about. So how we're able to really arrive at that piece, I think, is where the future will be, and that's an important part. The second, I think, which is applicable to most categories and even more so for us, is really digital, because digital will allow you to really segment your audiences by demographics and by need states, which would also mean that if your communication could then be targeted by those need states. So for example, someone could be using it for protection, someone could be using it just to avoid a re-injury. So some people are just wearing so that your wound doesn't re-injure. So how we're able to then have targeted communication to those different needs, I think digital will really allow. So really having very targeted communication, yes, and doing more of precision marketing, if I may say so, is where the future is in terms of, I will not say just healthcare, but I think that applies more to overall most industries as we move ahead.
Yeah, so I would add a further thought to this. So use of MarTech.
Yes,
It's a
yes,
MarTech which is going to define how we do marketing.
absolutely, absolutely. And just
Right.
one solution fits all won't work. You really need to have very targeted messages for those needs. Yeah.
It's mass versus niche.
Yes, yes.
Um, so how do you keep yourself abreast of whatever is happening in marketing in your industry? So, like you mentioned in the conversation, that there are a lot of things which happen for us, for marketeers across industries. There are latest trends, digital is there, then UX is there, the UI is there, use of AI is there, chat GPT is there. I mean, so much is happening. How do you keep yourself abreast of whatever is happening in marketing?
A good question. So I think most important is first is to know that what you know now will not be probably relevant 5 years from now. I think when I started marketing, it was fairly simple versus where I am right now. I think in the last 5 years, everything has changed. So it's really important to be abreast of what's exactly happening. So I think first lever I use, and I think most people would be using, are really your agency partners in terms of, because they are the subject matter experts. So really getting a very detailed understanding from them really helps you keep abreast in terms of what's exactly happening. So be it digital or be it media, or let it be your POS agency, they will really help and give you insights what's happening in these respective fields.
What's the latest trend, basically?
Latest trends. And if you want to look at a category understanding, we also have IQVIA. They are into healthcare OTC category. So they really bring alive the trends that you're looking at. The way you have Nielsen, similarly, you have IQVIA for a healthcare category. So they really help bring alive those insights in terms of what's happening. Second is really looking at your qualitative research agency partners. I think they also can help you go deeper. And so these will not be something that you have ready, but something that you will have to commission a study in terms of figuring out what's exactly happening in your category, what are the trends you want to sort of uncover. So these are the ways to get into the details of your category. Second is really going into those events. Some of these events that are done by your bigger agencies, I think helps give you a larger perspective, a bigger perspective, and helps you just know the direction that you are going on. How is it with how other brands, other organizations, and how the category is moving with. And the third is really up to you. There are a lot of courses available online, and it's really up to you to see where are you in terms of your skills, your developments, and where is it that you want to sort of build yourself. So I think these three. Fourth is the books. There are a lot of books that you can read and figure out. And I think it's good to talk to like-minded people to get book recommendations. I think that really helps. So these are my ways. But I think it boils down to your mindset. If you have a growth mindset, you'll figure out ways to do it. But I think these are the ways that I try and keep myself abreast.
Wonderful, wonderful. So are you using any marketed related tools in your day-to-day working?
Not very specific tools, but there are 2-3 things we do. So one is we have a cloud-based solution for ensuring we are storing the information and disseminating it to various stakeholders. So that's one thing we do. Second is for projects. I think there are some project management softwares that you look at so that you are able to drive networks more efficiently with cross-functional teams. And I think third, in terms of digital, there are various dashboards like Google Analytics and all of that. So those are ways of tracking how are you on your digital metrics. So these are the 3 things we use, but not very, very technical right now.
Not very technical. Right, right. Perfect. So I think that brings us to the end of this section. We will continue the conversation and it will be much more fun-filled, wherein we will have some rapid-fire questions.
Lovely.
Thank you so much, Pooja. Thanks.
Thank you.